Okay, so let's take a look at number 4. So it is again asking us to graph the system of inequalities by graphing. Looking at both inequalities, we can see that we only have to solve for y for the second one. The first one is in slope-intercept form. So let's solve the second one. Okay, so we have 2x minus y is less than or equal to 4. So we subtract 2x from both sides, and we get negative y is less than or equal to negative 2x plus 4. Now we need to have a positive y, so we need to divide everything by negative 1. Now when we divide an inequality by a negative number, we need to switch the direction of it. So it should become y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 4. So we switch it from a less than or equal to a greater than or equal to. Now let's graph them. Okay, so let's start with the y is less than 2x plus 5. So my y-intercept is 5. My slope is 2, so I go up 2 over 1. And I'll do that till I get to the top. And then I'll reverse it, going down 2 to the left 1 to go through the rest of the graph. Now, since there is no line under the inequality, it would be a dashed line. Okay, and now since it is a less than, we will be shading below the line. Okay, so we'll shade everything down here below the line. Now the second inequality we solved for was y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 4. My y-intercept is here at negative 4. So then I go up 2 over 1 since my slope is 2. And then I'll reverse it and go down 2 to the left 1 here. And then since there is a line under it, it will be a solid line. Okay, so it is a solid line. Since it's a greater than, I'll be shading everything above the line. Okay, so now everything in green is my overlapping portion. That is my solution to this. Okay, so graphing these on MathXL, we click to enlarge the graph. And for my first one, we have y is less than 2x plus 5. Since it is not an equal to inequality, there's no line underneath it here, I will use a dashed line. My y-intercept is 5, so I start at 5, and my slope is 2, so I go up 2 to the right 1. And now that one is graphed. Now for the second one, we solved for y. We got y is greater than or equal to 2x minus 4. That one will be a solid line, and I would start at negative 4, and I would go up 2 to the right 1. Okay. Now looking at my shading here, the overlapping part is in the middle, so I'm going to shade in the middle, click Save, and then that would be our graph. Okay, number 5. We are going to be graphing both of these inequalities. Now, they are already both in slope-intercept form, so I won't have to solve for y. So I just got to graph it and shade it. So starting with the first inequality, which is y is less than or equal to negative 1 over 3x plus 7, I would start with my y-intercept, which is 7. So I'm going to graph my first point at 7. My slope is negative 1/3, so I'm going to go down 1 to the right 3 and do that till I reach the end of the graph. Then I'm going to reverse it by going up 1 to the left 3. And now my entire graph is plotted. So now I'm going to connect it. Now there is a line under the inequality, so that tells me it is an equal to statement, and that will be a solid line. Okay, it is now a less than statement, so that means I shade everything below the line. Okay, so now let's look at the second inequality, which is y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 1. So my y-intercept is 1, so I start by graphing at 1. Then I go down 1 to the right 1 because my slope is negative 1. Okay, so I do that. Then I reverse it by going up 1 to the left 1. And then since it is a solid line, since there is a line under the inequality, that means it will be a solid line. Okay, so we have our solid line. Now, since it is a greater than statement, we will shade above the line. So everything up here gets shaded. The overlapping portion, the green portion here, will be my solution. So now let's put that on MathXL. So click to enlarge graph, and we're going to click my line. Now, since it is a equal to statement with the line under it for the inequality, it would be a solid line. So I start at 7 for my y-intercept for the first one, and I go down 1 to the right 3. So that's the line for y is less than or equal to negative 1 over 3x plus 7. Now for my next one, it will also be a solid line, and it says my y-intercept is 1. Then I go down 1 to the right 1. And now that one would be my line for the inequality y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 1. Now we see my shaded portion going back here was in the middle at the green portion. So shade that in, press save, and that would be number 5. So for number 6, we are doing the same thing as number 5. It is in slope-intercept form for both inequalities, so I won't have to solve, but we can go ahead and start graphing. So the first inequality is y is greater than or equal to negative x plus 2. My y-intercept is 2, so graph that. My slope is negative 1, so I go down 1 to the right 1. And I do that till I reach the end of the graph. Then I reverse it to the other side by going up 1 to the left 1. Okay, so now it is a equal to statement with the line under it, so it will be a solid line. Greater than means you shade everything above the line. Okay, so we shade everything above the line. The second inequality is y is less than or equal to 4x plus 6. My y-intercept is 6, and then I go up 4 over 1 because my slope is 4. But then I reverse it by going down 4 to the left 1 till I reach the end of my graph. Again, it is an equal to statement, so it is a solid line. It is a less than, so I shade everything below the line. And we see everything below the line. The green portion is the overlapping part, which is my solution. So let's graph that on MathXL. So click to enlarge graph. Solid line for both of them. My first one has a y-intercept of 2. I'll go down 1 to the right 1. The second one has a y-intercept of 6 and a slope of 4, so go up 4 over 1. So then I shade, looking at my graph, my shaded portion is over here. So I'm going to click the paint bucket, shade over here, press save. And there's my graph for number 6. Number 7, it is asking us to graph both inequalities. Now, none of these are solved for y. They are not in slope-intercept form, so we have to put it there first. So we have to solve for y for both of them. So starting with the first one, we have 18x plus 6y is greater than or equal to 15. So we need to subtract 18x from both sides first, which will leave us with 6y is greater than or equal to negative 18x plus 15. Now divide everything by 6. You will get y is greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 2.5. We need to keep this as a decimal for 2.5 for the y-intercept so we can graph it, because 15 over 6 is kind of hard to graph as a fraction. Okay, so then the next equation or inequality is 4x minus 8y is greater than 8. So we subtract 4x from both sides. We get negative 8y is greater than negative 4x plus 8. We divide everything by negative 8. Now, when we divide an inequality by a negative number, we have to change the direction of the inequality, and we get y is less than 1/2 x minus 1. Okay, so now we can graph both of them. Okay, so graphing the first one, we have y is greater than or equal to negative 3x plus 2.5. My y-intercept is 2.5, so I'm going to start there, which is halfway between 2 and 3. From there, I have a slope of negative 3, so I will go down 3 to the right 1, and I'm going to do that until I get to the edge of my graph, going down 3 to the right 1. Then I reverse it, go up 3 to the left 1 to go to complete the other side of the graph. Since it is an equal to statement, I will have a solid line. The greater than means I will shade the top of the line. I will shade above the line over here. Now for my second inequality, I have y is less than 1/2 x minus 1. So my y-intercept is -1, but then I go up 1 to the right 2, and then I do that for the rest of the graph on the right. Then I reverse it by going down 1 to the left 2. So now all my points are plotted, so I see this does not have a line under it, so it would be a dashed line. Okay, so that would be a dashed line. Less than means I shade below the line, which will be everything down here, and the green portion here is the overlapping part where both shadings overlap. So now let's put that on MathXL. Alright, so I'm going to click to enlarge the graph so I can graph it. Now I'm going to graph my first inequality, which we solved and got y is greater than or equal to -3x plus 2.5. It's a solid line. I'm going to start at 2.5. Each dash is a half a point. Okay, so make sure we count appropriately. So 2.5 is my starting point. I will go down 3, so I count down 1, 2, 3. Count 2 dashes to count as one whole point. And then I'm going to go over 1. Okay, and remember it's a solid line. My second one is going to be y is less than 1/2 x minus 1. So I'm going to start at -1. That's my y-intercept. I'm going to go up 1 over 2. Remember, count the half spaces as 0.5, so count up 1 and then 1 and 2. That will be a dashed line because there's no equal to there, it's just less than. Now we look at my graph here to see where I shade. My overlapping portion is here, so I'm going to shade right here. Click Save, check Answer, and that is number 7. Okay, number 8. So we are using this graph to find our actual inequalities, so we're working in reverse. So making this larger, let's see what information we have. Just looking at this, first thing I notice is that these are both solid lines, so I know they're going to be equal to statements. So starting with this line, the next thing I notice is that the shading is below that line, so it's going to be y is less than or equal to something. So that tells me it's either going to be C or D, because they're the only two where there's a y is less than or equal to something. So finding my equation of that line, I see my y-intercept is 0, it's going through the origin, and if I choose a second point, say right here, I can do rise over run to find the slope. So go up 1 over 1, my slope is 1, so I will have y is less than or equal to x. So that tells me it has to be C. But if we didn't know anything about the second inequality, we can actually find that too. So this is a vertical line, so it's going to be x either greater than or less than or equal to something, because vertical lines are x equaling. So then we see that the shading is to the left of it. Shading left of a vertical line will make it a less than. So it's a less than or equal to because it's a solid line, so x is less than or equal to 4. So that confirms that it has to be C. And that's our answer.